It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Monday, February 10th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. The high going to be 38. Tonight and overnight, some clouds, low 23. And then Tuesday, cloudy, high 37. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it is 30 and partly cloudy in Port Chester up in Westchester County. It's 27 and partly cloudy in Boonton over in New Jersey. And it is 32 and partly cloudy right outside our Midtown windows.
The top 5 at 5.
The Super Bowl was not so super unless you are an Eagles fan. Firefighters in Brooklyn have a hard time getting to hydrants. President Trump wants you to know that Elon Musk is doing a great job. We are told congestion pricing is working, but some bus riders say it's not. And a Westchester park where dead geese were found is still closed today. All right, let's get right into it. Of course, it was the Super Bowl. Did you stay up to watch it last night? I know a lot of people were up at this hour. They don't necessarily stay up late, but you didn't really have to stay up late at all because it was a blowout. The Eagles just ran right over a what we thought was a pretty good Kansas City Chief who was going for a third Super Bowl in a row. No team has done that in football, and now I guess that will be a while till there's another chance it could happen again. Eagles coach Nick Sirianni says everyone on his team sacrificed something during the season.
When you're practicing it with that kind of intensity, training camp, you're getting those matchups, Q versus AJ and Devontae and Slay. Versus those guys as well. So, and BG versus Lane and Jordan versus, Sweaty and Nolan. And so you have no choice but to get better.
Yeah, so by halftime, we were watching, had some people over. It was 24-0. You were like, what is going on here? They just completely shut down what is normally a pretty great Chiefs team. Here's Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts.
Everything comes with it, and I've always found a thrill in any doubt and any questioning and any opinions. It's always been something that I've embraced, and I don't want it to change now.
Yeah, and of course, as a longtime Giants fan, a lot of you, I'm sure, are Giants fans. You like Saquon Barkley, but you don't like the fact that he moves on over to the Eagles and just becomes a superstar. Now, he wasn't much of a factor last night. They figured out how to stop them, but they could not stop anybody else on that Eagles team.
That's what it's all about. You dream about these moments as a little kid, and it's just amazing to have your family and friends, and especially your family, been with me through it all, the ups and the downs, and here we are, world champs.
And of course, you always want to hear from the loser. So Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, I thought this was great of him. After the game, when they did the post-game interviews, he said the blame for the game and the blame for the loss, he said, totally goes on him.
Credit to the Eagles, man. They played better than us from start to finish. We didn't start how we wanted to. Obviously, the turnovers hurt. And, I take all the blame for that. Just those early turnovers swing the momentum of the game. They scored on the one, and then they got a touchdown immediately after. So that's 14 points that I kind of gave them. And it's hard to come back from that in the Super Bowl. And so just didn't play to my standard, and I have to be better next time.
Yeah, Chiefs coach Andy Reid says the team didn't feel the pressure to three-peat, but they just had a horrible night.
Listen, I don't think so. It's hard playing in this. This is a tough game. It's best against the best, and so I think they're more focused on that than they are three-peats and all that stuff. That wasn't a big issue.
Yeah, so they were destroyed. The final score of that one was 40-22. They had greased the poles in Philadelphia so people wouldn't climb, tell the light poles, the light fixtures. It was a party, no doubt, last night in Philadelphia that will go on for a couple days until the parade takes place. Of course, we'll have more about this coming up on Sid and Friends in the morning. President Trump sat down for a pre-Super Bowl interview, which a lot of the presidents have done in the past. He says he's directing Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency to expand its audit of what it considers waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government. In an interview with Fox News, he said the funding freeze for the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, was just beginning.
Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing.
Trump went on to say that the military will be next on his list. The FDNY calling out drivers yesterday in Brooklyn who park in front of fire hydrants. They had a major fire. This was in Bay Ridge, 4 a.m. on Sunday morning, and they say their delay in putting out this fire was because the people were parked in front of fire hydrants.
There was smoke coming out from inside the floor, and so I told my roommate something's wrong. We gotta move out.
So this was on 80th Street, 4 a.m. in the morning. That's somebody who lives in the building. Firefighters are racing to the scene, realizing that cars were parked in front of the fire hydrant.
They discovered two civilians just inside the doorway. Overall, we found 3 civilians that were transported to local hospitals.
Yeah, one of those people died.
Cars parked on hydrants are part of the reason we have the outcome that we have here today. The entire fire department is begging New Yorkers, do not leave your cars on fire hydrants. Seconds count, and when your car is on a fire hydrant and a fire engine shows up, we need to get to that hydrant immediately. There's no time to waste.
Yeah, I mean, what kind of dope puts their car in front of a fire hydrant, really? The cause of that, by the way, the cause of that blaze under investigation still. The new report from New York City's independent budget office confirming what many Brooklynites who take the bus already know, that buses are incredibly slow across the borough.
Coming back, sometimes like 45 minutes, the bus is still not there.
Now, the report we have is right before congestion pricing began, but riders who were even out over the weekend say they're still waiting a long time for a bus to arrive.
We're going to make this a one-way street. It never happened. The buses take a long time because of the double parking on both sides.
Yeah, MTA says they're working on all of that, and they say congestion pricing will help speed up those buses. But those riders say so far they haven't seen that. Up in Mount Pleasant in Thornwood's Carroll Park, remember we told you last week that they found a number of Canada geese dead, and now they have confirmed that a number of those birds that were tested have bird flu. So they're keeping the park closed for another couple days. They shut it down last week.
Definitely not a good thing to hear.
This isn't a joke if you get sick. We saw that with the last pandemic, so safety is important.
Yeah, so wildlife officials in Westchester County say they're working with wildlife experts now to keep other geese away from the pond so that bird flu does not spread any further. But that park, they say, closed at an abundance of caution. They're worried about, dogs and cats and other animals going inside the park. And so until they figure out exactly what's going on. WABC News Time 5:09. Governor Hochul ordering on Friday all those live bird markets across New York, Westchester, Long Island closed because of cases of the bird flu. She says her order means those bird markets need to stop taking in poultry. They have to sell down all the current stock and then close the store, undergo cleaning and disinfection for 5 days.
Each must then be inspected by our state egg and markets before they can reopen. These are just simply measured, common sense steps that'll curb the spread of bird flu and ultimately to keep New Yorkers safe.
Yes, so she doesn't want anybody to panic, but when you hear about the fact that they're shutting down these live bird markets, people do panic a little bit. Elizabeth Walters is with the State Department of Agriculture and Markets and says New Yorkers, they keep telling us not to be overly concerned, which is usually the time we should get concerned, right?
While New York continues to have no cases of HPAI in our livestock or humans, and the risk to the public is low, I want New Yorkers to know that we are on top of this.
Yeah, okay, so this is what we're being told is these markets have this window to sell down their stock, and then they can't bring in new stock until Friday, Valentine's Day. At least that's the word now.
These markets are very closely linked by source flocks, distributors, so we think it's really important to get in there, have a period of the markets being down so we can stamp out this disease.
Yeah. 5:11, a former aide to Mayor Adams pleading guilty to a conspiracy.
The charge is in relation to the federal corruption case against the mayor. Mohammed Bahi was City Hall's Muslim community liaison and was arrested back in October. Adams has pleaded not guilty to the 5-count indictment. This comes less than a month after another name in the corruption case, real estate developer Eardon Arkin, also pleaded guilty to conspiracy. Adams has a trial date set for April unless he gets pardoned before then by President Donald Trump. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
WABC News Time 512. Chinese tariffs on some American goods now in effect as President Trump continues to threaten trade wars with allies and rivals alike.
China's measures target U.S. exports of liquefied natural gas, coal, crude oil and farm equipment, as well as some automotive goods, with levies of 10 to 15%. Delaying the start of the tariffs and the targeted approach by Beijing had been seen as creating space for negotiations to try to avert a wider trade conflict. But when the deadline passed on Sunday, there was no news of a deal, and Beijing announced the tariffs were in effect. Trump had suggested he would talk with Chinese President Xi Jinping, but after China retaliated, he said he was in no rush and that the tariffs were an opening salvo with very substantial measures to come. Laura Westbrook, Hong Kong.
Let's go down to Washington. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz defending President Trump's attempts to reshape the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. Waltz telling NBC's Meet the Press yesterday that the organization spends money in ways that don't support strategic U.S. interests.
We need to realign their mission and line it up with the president's foreign policy vision.
And he says USAID isn't effective at providing international humanitarian aid as its proponents claim.
I think that is perfectly appropriate for USAID to be kind of tucked into the State Department and better align with their mission rather than just spreading money around. All too often, only cents on the dollar actually makes it to people in need between the big contractors, the subcontractors, the local contractors.
513 Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says illegal immigrants held at Guantanamo Bay will be there until officials can reach agreements with their home countries to send them back home. She was on CNN's State of the Union yesterday, says this could mean some may be imprisoned at the U.S. military detention and facility in Cuba, of course, for weeks.
They'll be there until we work with arrangements to take them back to their countries where they belong and have consequences dealt with them there.
And she insists those being housed there currently are accused of serious violent crimes, have been afforded their right to due process.
My goal is that people are not in these facilities for weeks and months. My goal is that there's a short-term stay. They're able to go incarcerate them, take them, follow the process, and get them back to their country. They are in the system and the facilities that, you know, a lot of our worst terrorist criminals have been incarcerated for many years.
And during this interview yesterday, Kristi Noem said that she would not rule out the possibility that migrants charged with nonviolent crimes could be sent to Guantanamo Bay as well. 514, the head of the Border Patrol is responding to allegations that they will be boarding school buses to check student immigration status. This was a rumor that was going around last week in some small Texas towns. Well, Chief Mike Banks talking about this over the weekend.
Let me be very clear. United States Border Patrol agents do not target schools, school buses, or churches.
Chief Mike Banks posting a video to social media shooting down a report from a school district in Alice, Texas, which is on the border. The principal had sent a letter to parents saying that federal immigration agents could board buses at Border Patrol highway checkpoints. It suggested students could be detained if they didn't have proof of citizenship. Border Patrol saying that's absolutely not true. 515, the vast majority of fentanyl overdose deaths come from people taking a fake prescription pill that's laced with a deadly opioid. Texas Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw outraged that the cartels are able to get their hands on the machines needed to create these pills, and he's trying to figure out a way to get those machines away from them.
That's one reason I have bipartisan legislation that requires the serialization of pill presses.
Yeah, lawmakers were told at a hearing last week that cartels are flooding the streets with these counterfeit pills. They say the drug dealers, of course, don't care. They just want to sell their wares.
Because we need to cut off the cartel's access to the tools they use to manufacture this poison.
And Crenshaw says that by requiring pill presses to have serial numbers, it cuts off the cartel's ability to create these counterfeit medications.
And trick kids into taking something that they think is something else, but it's not. It's laced with fentanyl.
5:16, let's go out to California, where Los Angeles Mayor Bass says the city will investigate why fire trucks were out of commission at the onset of the Palisades fire. Dozens of emergency vehicles, including fire trucks, were sidelined as the wildfire started a month ago because they needed service. And so she says there's a major investigation going on.
That's an issue in terms of the deployment, the pre-deployment, all of that is an issue, and all of that will be investigated. There were fire trucks that had mechanical issues, and we need to make sure that there are mechanics to take care of them. But there were also fire trucks that were idle because of staffing.
She was also talking about how things are going in the month after the devastating fires, how they're getting the homes permits so that people can rebuild.
Recovery and rebuilding continues in Los Angeles. To the Palisades, I want to say that LA is with you. LA will stand with you until the Palisades is completely rebuilt and your families return home.
Yeah, they got a long time to recovery there. WABC News Time 5:19. 5 planets will be in full view all February.
Skywatchers can view Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Mercury all month long, depending on cloud cover. Most of the planets will be visible to the naked eye, but for those who want to catch a glimpse of Uranus and Neptune, binoculars or a telescope are needed. As the month draws to an end, some of the planets will change positions to lower on the horizon, making them more difficult to spot. The best time to see the planets is after dusk on a clear night, far away from city lights and light pollution. I'm Mark Mayfield.
5:20, let's go overseas. Israel freeing 183 Palestinian prisoners as part of the ceasefire deal with Hamas. That was after Hamas released 3 Israeli hostages over the weekend.
The prisoners were released Saturday in exchange for 3 Israelis that Hamas took hostage during their 2023 attack on southern Israel. The Times of Israel says some of the prisoners were sent by bus to the West Bank and dropped off in Ramallah, where they were greeted by cheering crowds waving Palestinian flags. The Palestinian Red Crescent said 6 of the prisoners were in poor health and taken to hospitals. Another group of prisoners was released in Gaza. I'm Jim Forbes.
Yeah, it was intense to see those 3 hostages that were released over the weekend. I mean, they looked like they were Holocaust survivors. I mean, there's no doubt if you saw the video of those hostages being released over the weekend, it reminded you of the Jews coming out of the concentration camps. So there's lots of talk about how this ceasefire is going to hold up now that they realize that these 3 individuals, these 3 Israelis, were clearly starved during their time in captivity. Meanwhile, 3 Columbia University students suing the school now, claiming they were wrongly suspended during last year's protest of Israel's war in Gaza.
The 3 students, Catherine Curran Groom, Aiden Parisi, and Brandon Murphy, claim in court papers that the university unlawfully targeted and punished them for participating in the nonviolent protests. The New York Post reports the 3 also claim they were injured during the protests and that Parisi and Curran Groom got hit with skunk spray by 2 students who were former IDF soldiers. They claim they had headaches and were nauseous for weeks, and that although Columbia had received complaints about the 2 students, the university, quote, did nothing to protect them from their anti-Palestinian violence. I'm Lisa Salvati.
WABC News Time 5:21. President Trump could meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in the coming weeks. This according to a senior Russian lawmaker. Stuart Smith, correspondent, reports the meeting would likely focus on the war in Ukraine.
Since the election of President Trump, the US, Ukraine and Russia are sending the strongest signals in years that formal negotiations over ending the war in Ukraine could be a possibility.
The head of the Russian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee telling Russian state media that plans for a meeting are at an advanced stage and could take place in the next couple weeks.
Special Representative for Ukraine and Russia Keith Kellogg says he will discuss his plan for ending hostilities with European leaders at next week's Munich Security Conference. Proposals could include some sort of neutral status for Ukraine, freezing the conflict where Russia currently controls territory, and security guarantees for Kiev. It's deeply skeptical Russia can provide any such guarantees and has previously ruled out such concessions as being untenable, but it may be forced into making them as Washington looks increasingly anxious to withdraw itself from European security.
President Trump has previously said he wants to bring an end to the war in Ukraine, telling reporters it would have never happened if he had been in the White House at the beginning of the war. 5:23, let's bring it back home down to Louisiana. A Louisiana woman under arrest in connection with the death of a TV reporter who was covering the Super Bowl. Police in Kenner, Louisiana say Danette Colbert, arrested for allegedly using a credit card that belonged to Adam Manzano.
Ms. Colbert has quite a record and rap sheet for confidence games, access device fraud, and robbery schemes.
The Kansas City Telemundo reporter was found dead last Wednesday in his hotel room. Manzano's credit card, cell phone, found during a search of the woman's home. Police also say they have surveillance video that shows Colbert and Manzano entering his hotel room on Wednesday morning.
A search warrant was executed at her residence, at which time Mr. Manzano's credit card and cell phone were located inside that residence.
And there's a video of Colbert entering the hotel room and then leaving the hotel room without Manzano.
As soon as the coroner finishes with his findings, and they will classify it as either homicide or whatever death, the evidence leads him to.
5:24, out to Half Moon Bay, California, where a cat now has bird flu. We haven't seen many cases of this. The virus detected in a stray cat in Half Moon Bay. San Mateo County officials are urging pet owners to watch for symptoms.
Cats seem to be uniquely susceptible with respect to kind of the domestic species that we have as pets.
Yeah, so it's not clear how this cat got sick, but local officials say it's unrelated to a recent bird flu outbreak in a backyard flock in San Mateo. So they're scratching their heads. Are there other birds nearby that this cat may have feasted on, maybe a dead bird or something like that? And so, unfortunately, they had to put that cat down. 5:25, Walmart cutting hundreds of jobs as it closes its office in Charlotte, North Carolina.
The largest private employer in the country is closing its office in Charlotte, North Carolina. The decision is part of a plan to bring more employees to its main offices in California and Arkansas. Walmart is asking employees in Hoboken, New Jersey and other small offices to move to its main locations in Sunnyvale, California or Bentonville, Arkansas. Similar moves started last year to consolidate operations, with workers from Dallas, Atlanta and Toronto already relocating to these larger hubs. I'm Lisa Carton.
A well-known grocery chain putting limits on egg purchases now.
Trader Joe's announced Friday that customers would be limited to just 1 carton of eggs per customer per day. The chain says the limit is the best way to make sure as many customers who need or want eggs can get them. It's the latest impact of the ongoing bird flu outbreak. Nationwide, the average price for a dozen eggs is now more than $5. Waffle House has added a 50-cent surcharge per egg ordered, and some food trucks in New York City have had to raise prices on the breakfast staple egg sandwich. I'm Jim Forbes.
A new study out suggests that people feel better in the morning and worse late at night.
The study, published in the journal BMJ Mental Health, found that people generally reported better mental health and well-being earlier in the day. They also said they felt happier and more satisfied with life. Researchers said that while there's a correlation, they can't be certain time of day affects mental health. I'm Michael Kastner.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Monday, February 10th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. The high going to be 38. Tonight and overnight, some clouds, low 23, and then Tuesday, cloudy, high 37. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are, it's 30, partly cloudy in Port Chester up in Westchester County, 27 and partly cloudy in Boonton over in New Jersey, and it's 31 and cloudy right outside our Midtown studios. That was a pretty nice snowstorm, right? Saturday night into Sunday. It wasn't a whole lot, so you could get out and have some fun.
This is fantastic. As soon as we saw it last night, we started getting ready this morning, and I can't wait to sled and have a good time.
Yeah, so out in Long Beach on Long Island, it was the annual polar bear plunge, and, you know, this is when they run into the ocean, and they were raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and they didn't call it off because, you know, it's going to be cold no matter what.
I'm cold. I was first. I had to get it over with. You can't think about it too much. No. Got to get over with. He didn't go in. Everybody else did.
Yeah, I've done it in Brooklyn before. It's a fun event. You don't really want to spend too much time in the cold water, but it's all money for a good cause.
You feel your heart pump, and you're like, and it's invigorating. You come out and you're feeling like top of the world.
Did you hear that? I don't know if she drank too much or if she was just too cold. Listen how she says invigorating.
You feel your heart pump, and you're like, and it's invigorating. You come out and you're feeling like top of the world.
Yeah, it's invigorating. I think that may have been alcohol. Just how much of snow did we get in the end?
Central Park reported 3.1 inches of snow, while Staten Island 2.2 inches and 4.6 inches for parts of the Bronx. Long Island and Connecticut saw around 5 inches of the white stuff, while New Jersey hovered around 2 to 3 inches in total. New York City sanitation had more than 700 salt spreaders ready to ensure sidewalks were cleared by late Sunday morning. Now you should keep those bags of salt and shovels handy. More winter weather is predicted for Tuesday into Wednesday. Bill Trefiro, New York.
Yeah, of course, we'll follow that storm. There was kind of a crazy scene out on Long Island. A snowplow collided with a utility pole yesterday morning. It left hundreds of people in the dark. It caused a fire at the Superior Ice Rink in Kings Park. This was about 8 a.m. on Indian Head Road. It knocked out the power for about 650 customers who, you know, were a little bummed not to have the power.
Our own school's chancellor is telling...
Well, that's obviously not them. Anyway, according to PSE&G Long Island, the collision resulted in the loss of 4 sections of primary power lines, but they were actually, by midday, able to get the power back on for everybody. And do you have this? I have this ongoing, it's not a feud, but I just think it's sort of strange. I live in Jersey City, and it's houses one on top of each other. So when I go out to shovel the walk after a snowstorm like I did yesterday, normally what I do is I shovel my neighbor to the left, I shovel my neighbor to the right, and I initially started doing that because they were both senior citizens on either side of me, and I was like, I don't want them coming out and shoveling, you know, but they're old. Now there are new, younger neighbors in there, and initially, if I'm the first one out there, I'll shovel both sides. I'm not going to stop right on my front, little part of the sidewalk. But what I noticed yesterday was I didn't get out there till after they had been out there, and they shoveled right up to my sidewalk, did none of mine, and then my neighbor on the other side. The minute they got to my portion of the sidewalk, they stopped shoveling. I don't know. I just think that's bizarre because there's not a ton. It's not like I have a long driveway. I don't have any of that. Just a tiny little sidewalk that I have to cover. But I guess, I don't know. I just think it's just... WABC News Time 5:39. Data from the MTA shows that ridership is up on the LIRR following the rollout of congestion pricing.
Last month saw an increase of commuters system-wide by 13%. That number is lower than the 15% spike in December. However, certain stations have seen significant increases by over 20%. Riders tell Newsday TV they can see the difference.
There's people up and down the rows, where the seats are, and there's basically no place to sit.
The times that I travel, there is a sizable crowd, and you rarely get any seat on the LIRR anyway, but I have noticed that there are more people than usual.
Railroad President Robert Free thinks the toll program could play a role, but doesn't think it's the sole reason behind the extra passengers. I'm Liz Radabali for 77 WABC News.
When it comes to buses in Brooklyn, a new report from the New York City's Independent Budget Office confirmed what many Brooklyn commuters have known for a long time. City buses are not fast enough across Brooklyn. Data collected by the IBO revealed that the B70, B15 buses in Brooklyn have the largest decline in speed since 2019 at 12% and 11%. Other buses like the B12 travel even slower, 5 miles per hour. But apparently that's an improvement over a couple years ago back in 2019.
Coming back, sometimes like 45 minutes, the bus is still not there.
Yeah, so people say they thought congestion pricing would help the speed of buses. That has not been their experience.
We're going to make this a one-way street. It never happened. The buses take a long time because of the double parking on both sides.
Yeah, well, that's an issue. Riders say the reasons also include congested roadways and this bus lane network that they thought would go longer and wider, but it's inconsistent, and there's an inconsistent enforcement of those people who double park, which, of course, makes it harder for those drivers to get around. 541, the FDNY calling out drivers in Brooklyn who parked in front of hydrants that slowed down firefighters' response to a deadly house fire yesterday. This was about 4 a.m. in Bay Ridge, right along 80th Street. Firefighters were called there. The people inside this building racing out.
There was smoke coming out from inside the floor. And so I told my roommate something's wrong. We got to move out.
Yeah, and so firefighters get into this building. They start pulling out everybody that they can who's still inside.
They discovered 2 civilians just inside the doorway. Overall, we found 3 civilians that were transported to local hospitals.
Yeah, so those 3 victims inside, a 34-year-old mother and her toddler are in the hospital. A third victim, a 37-year-old man, passed away. And what these firefighters say is they probably could have gotten things hooked up quicker to the fire hydrants in Brooklyn, but there were cars parked in front of those hydrants.
Cars parked on hydrants are part of the reason we have the outcome that we have here today. The entire fire department is begging New Yorkers, do not leave your cars on fire hydrants. Seconds count, and when your car is on a fire hydrant and a fire engine shows up, we need to get to that hydrant immediately. There's no time to waste.
Yeah, I mean, there's something really wrong with you if you're parking in front of a fire hydrant. The cause of this blaze in Brooklyn is still under investigation. Community leaders, activists, elected officials gathering yesterday to express their frustration and discontent with Mayor Adams. The message they delivered clear. They say New York City is an immigrant city and a proud sanctuary city. And they say Mayor Adams no longer has their back like he promised they would. This comes after a memo sent to city workers leaked last week with guidance in case of immigration officials show up to places like city hospitals and public schools. The mayor said that if you felt in danger from these ICE agents, you should let them into your buildings.
He has told city workers that if they feel intimidated by an ICE officer, they should open the doors of our schools, of our hospitals, of our shelters.
He's kissing up to tyranny for a pardon.
They say the mayor's decision is only causing more fear for the migrant community in New York.
Our own school's chancellor is telling us that there's up to 5% of our students who are not coming to school any longer. We know in individual schools that's up to 20% absentee.
And they say a similar effect, they say, is happening at local hospitals. Now, the memo sent last week includes a series of steps, such as asking for an agent's credentials, asking for a warrant, and contacting the agency's general counsel. The mayor's office said in a statement this last week that they're responsible for safeguarding the well-being of our city and staff, but they told them that if they felt at risk, they should let those ACE agents into their buildings. 544. Meanwhile, thousands gathering in Union Square over the weekend to oppose a Trump administration order affecting gender care.
The executive order that the protesters were rallying over threatens federal funding cuts for hospitals treating transgender youth. The thousands of protesters included parents, children, activists, and lawmakers calling for action against the policy. Hospitals face a dilemma between losing funding or violating state anti-discrimination laws by denying care. Speakers at the rally say that gender-affirming care is a human right and urged hospitals to maintain their commitments. I'm Bill Trefiro.
545 up to Westchester County. Mount Pleasant officials returning to Thornwood's Carroll Park over the weekend. We told you the story last week. They found dead Canada geese in the park. They took them away to see if they would test positive for bird flu. They did. They kept the park shut down as they did this investigation, and now they say they're going to keep the park closed a little bit longer because they're worried about maybe other Canada geese who are part of this flock have the bird flu as well, and they're afraid they may pass it on to pets like dogs who walk around the park.
Definitely not a good thing to hear.
This isn't a joke if you get sick. We saw that with the last pandemic, so safety is important.
Yeah, so the town apparently working with wildlife experts to keep other geese away from the pond, and they encourage people with pets to stay away from the park until they know exactly what's going on. And this happening is on Friday. You'll remember Governor Hochul ordered all live bird markets in New York City to temporarily shut down because there's been cases of bird flu. So she told these markets, which are all over the place, you have them in the city, of course, Long Island, Westchester, that they needed to stop it taking in new poultry, sell down their current stock, undergo cleaning and disinfection after all those birds are gone.
Each must then be inspected by our state egg and markets before they can reopen. These are just simply measured, common sense steps that'll curb the spread of bird flu and ultimately to keep New Yorkers safe.
So there were 7 cases of bird flu in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens detected last week. There's recently been bird flu cases on Long Island, Westchester, a flock of dead geese, of course, in the park we were telling you about. Elizabeth Walters is with the State Department of Agriculture and Markets, and she's telling us not to be overly concerned, even though they forced these markets to shut down last week.
While New York continues to have no cases of HPAI in our livestock or humans, and the risk to the public is low, I want New Yorkers to know that we are on top of this.
But those markets are still closed today.
These markets are very closely linked by source flocks, distributors, so we think it's really important to get in there, have a period of the markets being down so we can stamp out this disease.
Okay, so what we're being told right now anyway, we'll see if this holds up, is those markets will be allowed to reopen for business come Friday. WABC News Time 549, NYPD looking for 2 gunmen who shot and killed a man in front of his house during an argument over a blocked driveway.
Police say it happened at around 2 a.m. Saturday on Fowler Avenue in the Morris Park section of the Bronx. The New York Daily News reports 49-year-old Trevor Hughes, a father of 4, was shot in the stomach after complaining to the men their car was blocking his driveway. Hughes was taken to the hospital but didn't make it. The gunman reportedly escaped in a gray Jeep SUV. I'm Lisa Salvati.
Last week we told you about how 2 congressmen, one from New York, were introducing legislation to make 9/11 a federal holiday. So over the weekend, lots of response to this. One of them, Mary Ellen, who lost her brother Thomas in the attacks on the World Trade Center.
In my opinion, I don't know why it's not a national holiday. I think it's disturbing. There's so many other national holidays, and this is like the most profound of all. And, you know, it makes no sense to me. It's unfathomable.
Long Island Congressman Tom Suozzi, Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick say the Bipartisan Patriot Act would amend Title V in the U.S. Code to cement 9/11 as a federal day of recognition.
I think it should be a federal holiday, if you will, and everybody should reflect and pray that this never happens again. You know, it's sad because the world moves too fast today, really, communication-wise. But you can never forget that day, ever.
Suozzi says the bill to commemorate 9/11 allows people to reflect on a day of immense loss as well as one of inspired unity afterwards. And New Yorkers say it's taken long enough, and as you heard from there, most of those New Yorkers, at least those 2 New Yorkers, think it's a good idea. Congestion pricing is triggering a push to restrict street parking to residents only in parts of Manhattan. They've tried to do this for decades. Resident parking stickers, so you have to live in the neighborhood to be able to park on the streets. And of course, now with congestion pricing, what's happening is you have people who are driving into portions of the city that are out of the congestion pricing zone looking for parking. So it's made it even more impossible for people who live in the neighborhood to find a spot. Manhattanites above 60th Street complaining that it's tougher than ever, and they say it's time to create this parking permit sticker that you would put in your window, And then you'd only, that would take out all those people who are coming from places like New Jersey. They wouldn't be able to get a spot.
One of the main complaints we get from our constituents is that it is impossible to find parking.
That's City Council member Carmen De La Rosa, who's behind a bill, along with Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine. It would require residential parking permits to park in 80% of spaces above 60th Street. Now, you still have paid parking, but those spots that are normally available to anyone would not be available to just anyone any longer.
I think it's another money grab from the city.
I think it's a good idea for people who have cars here and are looking for spots.
Yeah, they say the revenue that they would raise from these parking stickers would go to road repairs. It's 25 years in prison for a Long Island man who pled guilty to aggravated vehicular homicide in a wrong-way crash that killed 2 middle schoolers. Remember the story from last year. Before a judge delivered the maximum sentence to Amandeep Singh, emotional friends and family gave impact statements.
He was an innocent boy on his way home from celebrating a team win with his seatbelt buckled.
That's Ethan Falkowitz's father, Gary. Ethan and Drew Hasselbein, 14-year-olds at Rosalind Middle School and star tennis players, were killed when Singh crashed into their car in Jericho. This was May of 2023. Prosecutors say he was drunk and high on cocaine, driving around twice the speed limit. Singh, also a father, spoke in the overflowing courtroom as well, apologizing for the unspeakable loss.
This was avoidable. The state failed my son.
Drew Hasselbein's father delivered an impact statement in court as well.
He gave my son a death sentence and all of us a life sentence.
Nassau County DA Ann Donnelly says enough is enough.
As a mother and as your district attorney, I am tired of standing up here talking about unspeakable tragedies.
Yeah, especially avoidable ones from people who are drunk and high behind the wheel. 5:54 with tax season in full swing. Mayor Adams reminding New Yorkers that the city's offering free tax prep services to qualifying New Yorkers.
It's complicated. You don't know all the ways to ensure that you can get a healthy return. But we want to do that. We have the experts here.
New Yorkers who earn $93,000 or less a year and file as a family, or those who earn $65,000 a year or less and file as an individual, are open, or they can take advantage of this free tax prep.
We have virtual tax preparation going on where people are online submitting their taxes. We have in-person tax preparation appointments going on. And again, 45 other sites around the city.
There are service locations throughout the city. You just need to go to the city's website to find where they are. Out in New Jersey, there's this battle over the blue laws. You know, Bergen County's had these blue laws in effect for decades where all stores are closed on Sunday. And part of that was you have that strip in Paramus where all those malls and stores are. And people wanted a day where there's just no traffic there, which would be Sunday. But what's happened in the last couple months is the American Dream, that supersized mall in East Rutherford, has not been necessarily following those rules, and they've been opening some of the stores in that mall. The Bergen County executive, Jim Tedesco, is not happy about that, talking about this over the weekend.
The rest of all the stores and businesses in Bergen County are abiding by the law. We believe that American Dream should also abide by the law. Nobody's above the law.
Now, American Dream is on state-owned land, and they say for that reason they're not subject to blue laws. So what's happened over the coming months, initially it was just restaurants in this mall that were open on Sunday, but now retail stores have started to open up as well.
And we're hoping that American Dream will do the right thing.
Yeah, well, American Dream so far has not made any public comment about what they're going to do, but clearly they've opened some of these stores on Sunday. And we'll end with this. 2 teachers at Harriet Tubman Charter School up in the Bronx share more than a love for education. They now share a life-saving bond. Kiara Tarver, a teacher at the school, has sickle cell disease and kidney disease. And when she found out she needed a transplant, she realized that her friend and a fellow teacher, Sharon Gall, was a match. And Sharon Gall agreed to give her kidney to her fellow teacher. Now, I'm trying to think if I'd be willing to give a kidney to somebody here at the radio station.
I'm grateful. Very grateful.
It's a little shocking sometimes because it's like, oh my God, I'm going through this process. But I'm just glad I got people to go through it with me.
Yeah, good for them, for her, for giving over that kidney to save the life of a fellow teacher. 5:50.